Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this episode. We are currently a little over a week out from NFL kickoff day, which is next Thursday, September the 4th, which features your Philadelphia Eagles kicking off the season against the Dallas Cowgirls, who continue to have more trouble down in Dallas. But that's a little story for a little bit later. Before we hop into it, I would just ask you guys to leave a like and subscribe down below. That would be much appreciated, showing your love and support, especially coming into this NFL season. Whereas we are going to not exactly up the production, but I'm going to expand some ideas that we were working on last season. But without a further ado, let's hop right into it. So, some of the first things that we're going to touch on was yesterday was NFL cut day. So all NFL teams, all 32 teams, had to cut down to their 53-man active roster. So, in layman's terms, that means all of the NFL teams had around, I want to say it was close to closer to between 70 to 90 players on their roster for the preseason and training camp. Over the course of training camp, certain players would stand out more, vying for a roster spot. Now, a very easy way to make yourself valuable on the team, even if you're not a starter or even if you're not a backup, is on special teams. But besides that, if you stand out in your role during preseason games, which there's a certain Eagle on here that I'm happy did because he made the active roster. If you stood out during preseason games and or if you stood out during training camp practices, especially ones against other teams, then you had a higher chance of making the active 53-man roster. If you didn't, there's a high chance that you would be cut. Now, with all this being said, there's still a chance that some of the cut Eagles players that we will touch on in a second here could have a possibility on coming back to the team, but that being on the practice squad, which is, I believe, 14 slots for a team to pick up players that they cut if they clear waiver wires, or if they pick up a player off the waiver wires as well. So, we're not going to exactly know what the practice squad looks like probably till next week's episode, which is all right. But we currently know what the active roster looks like. I will go over that brief. Actually, before we even get into that, there's a couple different moves that the Eagles made. I want to say it was Saturday and Sunday after their last preseason game because they knew what they had in everybody else. So the first one, and one of the bigger ones, I feel like, at least to me, was the Eagles traded with the Jaguars for a former Super Bowl champion, Fred Johnson. He started a couple games. I feel like he started 6 games, and he played for the injured Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata at times, and when he stepped in, he did very good. Now, he's not coming in and being a starter, obviously. He's going to be a depth piece, but to me, this is fairly important, bringing back continuity on this offensive line, because Jalen Hurts knows how to work with Fred Johnson. And Fred Johnson played above and beyond what he was asked of last season. So this is a really solid pickup. I'm not sure why they would let him walk in the offseason in free agency and then trade for him now. I mean, it only cost us, I want to say, like a 6th-round pick, which is all right to me. But, Eagles trade for Super Bowl 59 champion Fred Johnson. It's going to be nice to have some continuity along this offensive line, especially if players like Tyler Steen start to falter or if either our tackles go down early on. The Eagles also traded for QB depth, especially with Tanner McKee being dealing with a thumb injury. I feel like he broke his thumb. He's not put on the PUP list, or the physically unable to perform list, which would keep him out till week 4. So there's high hopes that he could be back, hopefully by week 2, week 3. But, so yeah, the Eagles traded for QB depth with former Commanders and former Seahawks, and I guess former now Vikings quarterback Sam Howell. Sam Howell has had starting reps, especially down in Washington. I probably should say D.C. since he's played both in Washington State and Washington, D.C. But, yeah, Sam Howell has had starting experience, and overall, not a bad backup. He'll most likely be our third stringer behind McKee once McKee is back at his full capacity. But till then, Sam Howell will be the backup for Jalen Hurts. The Eagles also traded Darian Kinnard to the Packers for a 6th-round pick, which then we sent that 6th-round pick to the Jaguars for Fred Johnson. So Howie's really just moving pieces around for other depth pieces in order to try to keep this team running even if injury were to occur. All right, so let's get to your Eagles' initial 53-man roster. With quarterbacks, we have Jalen Hurts, Tanner McKee, Sam Howell. Went over all 3 of those. Running backs, they kept 4. They listed 1 as a fullback. They kept Saquon Barkley, A.J. Dillon, Will Shipley, and they listed Ben Van Sumeren as a fullback. Okay. Wide receivers. All right, so there's one that I want to touch on. Obviously, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson. John Mechie, they traded for him. He was obviously going to make the roster. Johnny Wilson, we covered it last week that he went down with an ankle injury. He'll be out for the rest of the season, which opened up another spot in the wide receiver room, that being undrafted free agent Darius Cooper. I'm not entirely surprised, especially watching how he exploded over the first few preseason games. And I'm fairly proud to say that Darius Cooper has earned his spot in the wide receiver room. And although he's wide receiver 5 and probably won't see too much playing time on the field, it's nice to see that a guy that Jalen Hurts was actually fairly confident getting in rhythm with and trusting as well during practices has made the roster. And hopefully he can continue to build off of this, and moving forward, John Mechie and Jahan Dotson are on the last year of their deals, and unless they really explode, I doubt that the Eagles will pick them back up, meaning Darius Cooper could have a shot at being wide receiver 3 next season if he plays his cards right throughout this season. So that's more of a wait and see, but I'm fairly proud to say that Darius Cooper is a Philadelphia Eagle officially. They kept 3 tight ends, Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, and Kyle Granson, or Kylen Granson, apologies. Yeah, because they traded away what's-his-face down to Houston, so they kept Kylen Granson as their tight end 3. I'm pretty sure he's a better blocking tight end, which is kind of the opposite of Grant and Dallas, so I don't mind that move at all. Offensive line, we kept 11 offensive linemen. Most of these guys are depth pieces, but let me go over the starters. Obviously, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Cam Jurgens, Jordan Mailata, and Tyler Steen. Some of the depth pieces at O-line that we have are Fred Johnson, who we just talked about, Drew Kendall, Matt Pryor, Brett Toth, who actually looked pretty good during the preseason. So he definitely earned that probably last offensive line roster spot right there. Trevor Keegan and Cameron Williams. You're going to see this, but especially on both offensive and defensive on the in the trenches. The Eagles tend to keep a lot of offensive and defensive linemen, especially offensive, and especially if they're still going through the Jeff Stoutland University system that they have there in the NovaCare complex. So, not overly surprising. And it's nice to see some people like Trevor Keegan and Cameron Williams were able to make the roster, even though that they didn't overly perform as well as many had hoped coming into the training camp. All right, on the defensive line, we have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Jomo, Ty Robinson, Byron Young, and Gabe Hall. I'm kind of surprised at the Gabe Hall one. He must have performed well enough during practices, and maybe, I forget whether he really performed well during whatchamacallit, I'm blanking on the name, during preseason games. But overall, I do feel like maybe they kept one too many. Maybe they could have kept one more edge rusher instead. But who am I to judge here? Overall, smart moves by Howie keeping this many guys. Give me 1 second here. Alright, so next up we have the Eagles edge rushers. They only kept 5, as I mentioned earlier. Obviously, Nolan Smith, J.Alex Hunt, Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche, and Agbo Nkonkwo. Ooh, this is gonna be hard to pronounce. Oh boy, I'm gonna put you this. I'm just gonna say Nkonkwo, but I know it's not that because that's an OR. But Agbo Okonkwo. All right, that's what we're saying. That's what we're moving forward with. That's probably going to be for the rest of the season too. So yeah, obviously we knew Nolan Smith, J.Alex Hunt, Azeez Ojulari, and Josh Uche would make the roster. Agbo is also a nice addition. He started for Cleveland over the past few years. He's a veteran. He's, I think, 30, I believe. So he's not going to be taking any starter snaps, and it would be nice to see him maybe eventually get in the rotation. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him coming off right off the bat. All right, so linebackers. So, and there's a name on here that you're not going to hear, and it's going to be surprising, but it's not for the reason that you think. All right, ready? Linebackers. We have Zach Bond, Jihad Campbell, Samal Mondon, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. What's one name that you didn't hear off of that? Yes, that would be Nakobe Dean. Here's why. He's still on the injured list. All right? So he being on the injured list, although he could still come back within like a couple weeks, that opens up another roster spot for another guy to get a chance to either put film on tape for other teams before they get released, or not that he would take Nakobe Dean's spot, but prove to the Eagles that they are more valuable than one would think. Alright, so we're going to move on to defensive backs. Just for anybody that doesn't know, I'm not sure whether you do or you don't, defensive backs are both cornerbacks and safeties. So we have our starters being, and we're going from safeties down, we have Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, we have Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Those are like probably your 4 starters. You also have Dory Jackson, let's see, Andrew Mabuka, Keely Ringo, Tristan McCollum, Ja'Cory Bennett, and Mac McWilliams. I'm surprised Mac McWilliams made it. Early on in training camp, he was getting a lot of attention. But overall, I do feel like that he probably earned it, especially during practices in the eyes of Vic Fangio. And at the end of the day, whatever Vic Fangio says goes. Lastly, the two specialists that they have on roster is Jake Elliott and Brandon Mann, both your kicker and punter. All right, so let's go to some of the releases. And, let's just go over this this list of releases. Now, I want to get to something real quick. You're going to see both quarterback DTR and also Kyle McCord on here. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle McCord comes back on the practice squad. Rookie quarterbacks tend to clear waiver wires a lot easier because teams aren't as bullish on them as compared to a quarterback like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who has starting experience in the NFL, no matter how bad or good it is. All right, so we have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Lewis Cine. One surprising one is Kenyon Green, the offensive lineman that the Eagles traded for in the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade. He got released. He could come back on the practice squad, but that is to be determined. They let go of E.J. Jenkins. They let go of Montrell Johnson Jr., They let go of Eli Ricks. I was actually kind of surprised on that. They've been high on Eli Ricks even through this preseason. But I guess he just, compared to other players who were on the fringe like Mac McWilliams, he just didn't earn his spot. All right, let's look at some other more important players that you would see. Terrence Marshall, Elijah Cooks. Let's see, Aniyah Smith. Wouldn't be surprised if he comes back on the practice squad, but that's kind of a rough one to see, honestly. Our long snapper, Charlie Hewitt, though we knew that we were letting him go. Wide receiver, Avery Williams. Cornerback, Parry Nickerson. Let's see. Off the ball linebacker, Antoine Powell Rhineland. I actually thought he was going to make the roster, too. And, yeah, that's like all the more notable guys on this cut list that we have. So, yeah, overall, I do feel like the Eagles made smart decisions. Doesn't mean I always agree. I probably feel like you probably should have kept Kyle McCord on the active roster. But you're not going to put Tanner McKee or Sam Howell on the practice squad because they will get signed by like week 3 or week 4 once a starting quarterback goes down. Or if you put Tanner McKee on the practice squad, you know the Saints and Kellen Moore are more than willing to scoop him up. So better to keep him here on the active roster and away from any possibility that any other team could pick him up for nothing, and put Kyle McCord on the practice squad, which will most likely lead to nothing, but hey, we still have Kyle McCord. All right, so that's all your Eagles news. It was a fairly important day for the Eagles because now we know who's going to be your starting roster, and you kind of get the feeling of who on this cut list is probably going to come back. Some of the bigger names are Aniyah Smith. I think Avery Williams is a possibility to come back. Kyle McCord, Montrell Johnson Jr., E.J. Jenkins. These are all guys that I could see come back. And Parry Nickerson. These are guys that I could see clear waiver wires because they're not that big of names. And then come back to the Eagles practice squad and stay on that squad for a little while. All right, so some more news from around the league. We got some bigger news, and this affects hold-ins and holdouts. Let's go over this. Terry McLaurin and the Commanders agreed to a 3-year, $96 million contract extension, tying him with A.J. Brown with average yearly salary, that being $32 million a year. So, I guess congrats, Terry McLaurin. I was really hoping this was going to drag into the season, but Commanders probably bent the knee for McLaurin here because you don't want Jaden Daniels throwing to Deebo Samuel on week 1. That's just not like optimal for the entire team. And overall, I do feel like this Commanders team, although they brought back Terry McLaurin, and this does ease some of my concerns with them, especially Jaden Daniels taking a step back, it doesn't mean I'm still bearish on the Commanders this season compared to, well, I can't even say last season, but compared to most other people. So, yeah, congratulations, Terry McLaurin. You got the deal that you're looking for. He's most likely going to be a Commander for life. I mean, he's around 30 now, isn't he? I forget how old he is. How old is he? He's not 29. He'll turn 30 in September. So, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if this is his last big deal, and it could be his last deal, period, because this will take him until he's 33, because this contract extension doesn't kick in until next year. So, congratulations, Terry McLaurin. Him coming back will make this Commanders offense a lot better, but we just got to wait and see how he looks, especially not having practiced for over a month and some change. Speaking of somebody who hasn't practiced in over a month and some change, Bengals and Trey Hendrickson agreed on a new contract? Not exactly. Hendrickson gets a $14 million boost in his guaranteed money this year, putting it Hendrickson will now make $30 million this year, guaranteed, and will likely become a free agent after this season, according to multiple insiders. I feel like the Bengals just want to put a Band-Aid over a gushing head wound at this point, but they didn't really want to hear any more of the Trey Hendrickson talk, I feel like, so they were kind of just like, okay, this is it. This is about all we're doing at this point. So, yeah. Overall, you're kind of upset to see that he's not getting the full security that Trey Hendrickson kind of deserves at this point in his career. But at the same time, like, he got the money that he was looking for this year. If he's smart with his money, he can find a way to invest it and grow that even more. But, and I feel like Trey Hendrickson is the kind of guy that would be smart with his money. But he also now needs to work his butt off again this season to get a final big contract, whether that's 2-3 years. That's to be determined, but he's definitely going to be a big free agent target, especially if he continues to produce at the same level he has been over the past, 3-4 years now. So, yeah. I guess congratulations, Trey Hendrickson. I mean, it may have not worked out the best way for you, and it probably worked out for the Bengals the best way possible, but oh well, their defense is still going to suck. It doesn't matter. But, yeah, congratulations, Trey Hendrickson. Alright, Spencer Rattler named QB1 down in New Orleans. Are the Saints screwed? Yes. Yes, they are. So it's going to be fun watching that entire thing implode. And if you've been watching me, and if you watched last week's episode where we covered the NFC South records and predictions and standing predictions, I have the Saints as the worst team in the NFL. So, yeah. The Saints are going to be screwed for years to come. And this isn't a one-year thing. They are in such cap hell that they have to start a quarterback like Spencer Rattler. And that's not saying much. But hopefully he can play good enough that Tyler Shuck doesn't come in and takes his job. But you know Tyler Shuck is waiting in the wings for Spencer Rattler to slip up even a little bit and just allow Kellen Moore to allow him to take control. Alright, so let's get to some more NFC and AFC record predictions. This week we are doing the NFC and AFC North divisions. Now, before we get into this, I will say, especially with the NFC, it was fairly hard to gauge where some of these teams would be. Teams like the Lions, I could kind of gauge because I know the pieces that they're coming back with, though they are missing a lot of their coaches on their coaching staff, and a lot of them are new faces. I still feel like I know who this team is, and I know who they could beat as well. Packers, I kind of know who they are, but I still have questions, especially about the quarterback. I have questions about how good that wide receiver room could be. I have questions about how good that defense can be as well at times. The Vikings, obviously, I have questions at quarterback. Everything else, Brian Flores and his defense can carry the team possibly. That wide receiver room, if healthy and if not suspended, Jordan Addison, then they could be one of the best in the entire NFL. But the quarterback, we have no clue what we're walking into, similar to last season, where it could be boom or it could be bust. And the Bears, we don't know how long it's going to take for Caleb Williams to get on track in the Ben Johnson system. Did he look better during the last preseason game? Yes. Does that mean anything to me? No. I want to see him up against full speed first teamers, and I want to see him have to go 100% as well. So, yeah, without further ado, let's hop right into it. So, at number one, number one, I have the Lions with a ceiling of 12-5. Yes, there is a possibility, and we'll get into this for their floor, that they do stumble into the season a little bit, especially coming off of that bad divisional round loss against the Commanders. But if everything goes right and they find their footing early, I see them returning to form and firing on all cylinders. That's if Jared Goff and the new offensive coordinator mesh very well and the system works as a whole. They probably should run the ball a lot. I mean, looking at some of these teams that they have to face obviously their own division. They have to face the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, the Eagles, the Commanders again, the Cowboys, the Steelers, the Rams. All of these are playoff caliber teams. And some of them you almost play in a row. If it wasn't for the Cleveland Browns in Week 4, they would have the Ravens, Bengals, Chiefs, Buccaneers back to back. And then they have the Vikings, Commanders, Eagles right after that. And then they have another stretch where it's Cowboys, Rams, Steelers. So they have quite a few hard stretches. But if Dan Campbell, if there's anybody that can figure out a way to win, it's Dan Campbell. And looking at their floor, I have their floor at 10-7. And that's if they start to stumble and start to have losing streaks throughout the season. If they, let's say they pull off a win against the Ravens and then and then they win against the Browns, well, then they have a 3-game losing streak against the Bengals, Chiefs, and Buccaneers, all of which could be all vying for playoff spots. It doesn't bode well for me. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if they're closer to their floor of 10-7. And yes, they'll find ways to win against some of these teams, but overall, I do feel like they could slip up, and once they do, they're going to continue to streak in a downward direction. At the Packers, looking at the Packers, they have a lot of similar teams to play, like the Lions, obviously their own division, which they did poorly against last year, and we'll get back to that in a couple of minutes. But they also have to play teams like the Commanders, Cowboys, Bengals, Cardinals, Steelers, Eagles, Broncos, and Ravens, all teams that could be vying for playoff spots, and that's not including their own division, who could all be vying for playoff spots. Yes, they have a couple cupcake teams like the Browns and like the Giants, but overall, this is not an easy record for the Packers at all, or an easy schedule for the Packers at all, which is why I have their ceiling at 9-8. If you told me that they would go on some streaks against some teams, like if they pull out wins against the Lions and then the Commanders to open the season, and then they go on to lose against the Cowboys, Bengals, and Steelers a few games later, I wouldn't be overly surprised. Again, similar to the Lions, they have streaks where they have just hard teams to play through. And if they can't find a way to win, especially off the back of Jordan Love's inconsistent play, I could see them hitting a floor of 6-11. It's not completely out there that Jordan Love folds under the pressure of playing all of these playoff teams before he makes it to the playoffs. Obviously, that would be worst case scenario if Jordan Love completely implodes. But yes, I do have faith that they'll be closer to their ceiling and vying for a wild card spot. But at the same time, looking at their schedule, there are some points where it's a slaughterhouse. Because, and let's get into this, last season they went 1-5 in games against their own division. And if they want to win this year and go above their ceiling, they have to at least split every single series with all their division rivals, if not sweep one of them and split with two. That will put them already at a 4-2 record if they do that last option there. And then they're sitting a little bit more confident. Then they're sitting a little bit more pretty. And then they can start game planning for teams outside of their own division. And yeah, they cannot go 1-5 again. I'm sorry. If they go 1-5 again, they are going to be closer to their floor or lower. And if that's the case, that's going to be fairly disappointing for the Cheeseheads up in Wisconsin. So next up, we have the Vikings. The Vikings are a very interesting team, a team that I'm very bearish on when it comes to at least their quarterback position, if not their entire record as a whole. Looking at it, Vikings play several hard teams outside of their own division. They play like the Falcons, they play the Steelers, the Eagles, the Chargers, the Ravens, the Commanders, the Cowboys. All teams that could be vying for playoff spots. And that's outside of their own division, who are going to eat each other alive, realistically. There are some easier parts to their schedule, like they have Bears, Falcons to start off the season. If everything goes right, I could see them going 2-0 based off of how well Kevin O'Connell really coaches up this team. But if not, they could go 0-3 to start out the season, and that's at worst case. And looking at that, they have a couple other stretches where they have to go Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens. That's going to be hard. And if the Seahawks are good, they have to go Seahawks, Commanders, Cowboys. Yes, they get breaks, but for essentially a rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, that could be difficult. And every once in a while, it's weird. Justin Jefferson will miss a short stretch of games, like 2 or 3, like once a season. And if that happens, and let's say that happens early on, and there's no Jordan Addison, they just, as I'm recording this, traded for Adam Thielen. He would be your number 1 wide receiver. So, yeah, overall, I'm slightly concerned about how well J.J. McCarthy can play against these top-tier teams. especially coming off a season where he was unable to practice, though he was able to watch what Sam Darnold did and how he succeeded in KOC's system up in Minnesota. It doesn't mean that that's going to translate over immediately. So, yeah, I have the Vikings ceiling at 9-8, and that's if they are able to pull off some division wins like last season, and are able to upset some teams like the Commanders, Chargers, Steelers, and Bengals. And I also have their floor fairly low at 4-13, and that's if everything goes wrong. And that would be surprising with a Kevin O'Connell coached team here, who I don't think have ever had a losing record. So I'm not overly surprised if the Vikings go closer to their floor, but I also wouldn't be overly surprised if J.J. McCarthy surprises us all and just goes on a tear like Sam Darnold did last year. And ultimately, they are vying for another wild card spot. Lastly, we have the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears are an interesting team in the fact that they just got one of the most sought-after offensive coordinators as their head coach, and that being Ben Johnson from their division rival, the Lions. Caleb Williams, year 2, looking to take a step forward. Doesn't have as many weapons this year. He doesn't have Keenan Allen anymore, but he still has DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Both are solid guys. I don't believe in their running game too much. It's DeAndre Swift. He has never shown to be that consistent of a running back to be a starter in the NFL. But they have an amazing offensive line that they just took from different pieces from around the league, built it up, and now this is possibly Caleb Williams' best offensive line. He has to find a way to win now. All right? Looking at some of the teams that they play, besides their own division, they play teams like the Cowboys, the Raiders, Commanders, Ravens, Eagles, Steelers, 49ers, and Bengals, all of which could be playoff caliber teams, and all of which could give the Bears a hard time. If everything goes right for the Ben Johnson-led Bears, I could have them having a ceiling of 9-8. Yes, I know I just copped out and did like a ceiling of 9-8 for the Packers, Vikings, and Bears. But this division is going to eat each other alive, especially these three last teams. They have a few easier points in their schedule, and it feels like they don't have that many streaks of hard teams besides right at the beginning, where they have to go Vikings, Lions, Cowboys, Raiders, Commanders. That's going to be a rough streak, but if they can find ways to win against easier teams like the Vikings, like the Raiders, they are going to build up some more confidence. I will be excited for this. I think it's a Monday night matchup. I feel like this is a Monday night matchup between the Bears and the Commanders in D.C. I am going to be fairly excited watching that game, and I'm going to be glued to my television because of how the last game ended last season. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to get a win off the Commanders, but that's just my bold prediction for that week, which is teasing a new feature that we're starting next week when we go over some of the different matchups. But we'll get to that when that time comes. And yeah, they have some other difficult parts of their schedule. So if everything was to go wrong, if things weren't to click for Caleb Williams, if this offensive line wasn't as good as we thought, I could see the Bears going 6-11 as their floor. I do believe Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams will find ways to propel this team to wins, even if they have to drag it to a win. I believe they will find a way. I do believe it will take a little bit of time for Caleb Williams to get used to this system going at 100%. I mean, it took Jared Goff like a year to get used to this system. But, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's growing pains early on, especially against some of these harder teams. But eventually, halfway, they start to figure it out and start to put some wins together. So, if everything was to And today, with these records, I would have the Lions at 1, Packers at 2, Bears at 3, Vikings at 4. And I could definitely see the last two switching depending on how well J.J. McCarthy plays. But, again, I'm just a little bit more bearish on the Vikings compared to the Bears. Moving over to the AFC North, talking about another division that likes to eat each other alive, we are going to move on over to the Baltimore Ravens. And let's just go over the Ravens quickly because they're a good team. All right, they're going to be contending for the number 1 overall seed in the AFC again. They have plenty of hard games, especially early on. They have to play the Bills. They have to play the Lions. They have to play the Chiefs. They have to play the Texans. They have to play the Rams. And that's all before Week 7. So if they find ways to win those games, then I believe their record will be better than what I predict. And I have their ceiling at 12-5. I do believe that they will find ways to win against teams like the Chiefs, like the Texans, like the Rams, but they will falter against other teams like the Lions and Bills. That's just how the Ravens play football. And that's not a knock on Lamar Jackson or John Harbaugh or the entire Ravens team. I feel like this might be the best team and the best shot they have at getting to the Super Bowl, which I will be making my Super Bowl predictions next week. But, yes, I do feel like if there's a year where the Ravens have to go all out to win this, it is this year. But speaking on that, I have their floor at 9-8, and that's if they falter early. Like, they play several playoff contending teams early on. Bills, Lions, Chiefs, Texans, Rams. All before, all before Week 7. I mean, if they fail against most of those teams, I could see them starting like 2-4, maybe. And it doesn't really get too much easier because, especially in the back end, they play a lot of their own division. They play the Bengals, Steelers, Bengals. Then to end out the season, they play Packers, Steelers. All of these teams could be contending for top spots in their own divisions. So, yes, I do feel like the Ravens are kind of set, and I do feel like they're going to be way closer to their ceiling of 12-5. But I wouldn't be shocked if they start to falter against these other playoff teams. And some of these teams have been there, done that. So, yes, I do have the Ravens at 12-5, closer to that ceiling. Next up, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are an interesting team, especially with Aaron Rodgers now playing out his last year as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Mike Tomlin kind of on the hot seat, and them bringing in multiple different pieces like Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, DK Metcalf, all of which are here to help them contend, at least for the playoffs. To me, if you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. And although I'm not ready to say, oh, the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl, I still feel like there's a good chance that they could make a deep run if they just get to the playoffs. Looking at their schedule, it's not that difficult, honestly, compared to like the Ravens. I mean, they got to play the Jets, Seahawks, Patriots, Vikings, Browns. That's their first 5 games, all of which are fairly winnable for that defense alone, let alone if this offense is clicking with Aaron Rodgers. Then after that stretch, there's a couple games later. They have Colts, Chargers, Bengals, Bears. Then they have a pretty difficult stretch to end it. They have their last 6 games are Bills, Ravens, Dolphins, Lions, Browns, Steelers. Ravens. Yes, they get a break with the Dolphins and the Browns, but that doesn't mean that stretch is going to be much easier. So we will see who this team is, I feel like, closer to the end of the season. And whether they are closer to their ceiling of 12-5 or their floor of 10-7. I do feel like This team has a higher floor only because they have a little bit of an easier schedule compared to the Ravens. And that's me basing the idea off of if some of these teams aren't like playoff contenders at all. So, yeah, Steelers, although they have a higher floor, I feel like they're going to be closer to their floor, closer to a 10-7 than a 12-5. But hey, anything can happen, and especially in this AFC North division, magic can just happen sometimes, and it's just like that. Next up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals obviously just got back Trey Hendrickson. I do feel like Trey bolsters this defensive line maybe a little bit. Now, him and Shamar Stewart coming off the edge, both could be top-tier edge rushers depending on how bad this defense looks entirely. This secondary is pitiful, but their offense looks good, so I guess that's supposed to be good. I have the Bengals ceiling sitting at 10-7, and that's if everything goes right. They play many difficult teams, many playoff caliber teams. They play the Jaguars, the Vikings, the Broncos, the Lions, the Packers. Obviously their own division. They play the Bills, Ravens, Cardinals. So, yes, a little bit easier than the Ravens, I will say. But this defense needs easier because they will get lit up because they go up against this little stretch here closer to the end of the season. They go against Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. These are all back-to-back, all right? So, and then Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. So, this secondary has to be ready. If this team is to make it to their ceiling or beyond, they have to show that this defense is ready to help the offense contend early on. It doesn't mean you have to have like an interception or 2 interceptions every game, but it has to show that you can get the stop on third down when it matters most and give the offense back your ball. The Bengals will win if their offense dominates time of possession. But if anything else happens, if they're even, then I feel like they have a higher chance of losing against their opponent. And I have their floor at 6-11, and that's if this defense can't hold up, and that's if Zach Taylor implodes again, and that's if they get off to another slow start in the beginning of the season, which they historically do. So, yeah, I see the Bengals with a possible floor of 6-11 with a ceiling of 10-7. Lastly, we're going to go over these guys quick because I don't really want to talk about the Browns more than the media has already done because we know their quarterbacks. Now it's they traded Kenny Pickett to the Raiders. Now you have Joe Flacco as 1, Dylan Gabriel as 2, Shedeur Sanders as 3. Obviously, they have their own division who are going to beat the absolute crap out of them. They have to play divisions like the entire NFC North who will kick the crap out of them as well. They have to play teams like the Raiders, the 49ers, the Bills. All of these teams are playoff caliber teams at the end of the day. So I do feel like this year is going to be another down year for the Browns, but when hasn't it been over the last 25, 26 years? So, yeah. Browns ceiling of 4-13. That's if Joe Flacco can find wins where they are nearly impossible to get in this schedule. And 2-15 means that both Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel failed, and Shedeur Sanders is now your starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns by the end of the season. As simple as that. I will put that out there. All right? All right, so if everything ends how it is today, I would most likely have the Ravens at 1, Steelers at 2, Bengals at 3, and Browns obviously at 4. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of that. Those two divisions. I probably should have said those the last 2 episodes, but what the hell. So that is my record predictions. Obviously, with a lot of the hold-ins ending this week, hold-ins and holdouts is now going to be retired till next offseason. So that'll be nice. But one notable hold-in that is still on our list, and also kind of has its own kind of little segment, is the Dallas Cowboys in big trouble in Big D. So let's get into this. Jerry Jones went on onto Michael Irvin's podcast, and he said that that Micah's agent essentially told him to kick rocks after he offered to give make Micah the highest paid non-quarterback player in the NFL. That is insane. I don't think that happened. I think that's just Jerry leveraging against Micah at this point. So he went on the podcast. He blasted his agent. He also admitted that over the years he's been breaking the NFL policies, and he's been negotiating straight with players, which is illegal. But nobody's going to talk about it because it's Jerry Jones. He has all the power in the NFL at this point. So, old man Jerry went on Michael Irvin's podcast. He blasted Micah's agent. Not Micah himself, though. He kind of did insinuate that Micah also was not exactly playing ball with him anymore. And that also, in turn, shocked Michael Irvin a lot, too. And on Friday, was it Friday? No, it might have been Saturday. Whatever the Cowboys preseason game was, I wasn't watching it because I didn't care. Micah Parsons was seen just sitting and laying on a table behind the team. He was the only player not to suit up for the game. Even the rest of the starters suited up for the game. Micah, no. He just went on the the operation table, or like the table that they have to work on people if they get injured. He just went on there and laid on there. He took a nap during the game. And after the game, he was there after, too, still taking a nap. It seems like, and he also scrubbed his entire, social media of all Cowboys stuff. Now, that means really nothing to me until, he gets traded. But, it does feel like things are really cold down in Dallas, surprisingly, with it being, close to 90 degrees down in Dallas. But things are fairly chilly with the Cowboys right now. And I don't think Jerry Jones and Micah are anywhere close to a contract as it sounds. Now, that doesn't mean that something can't happen today. Trey Hendrickson's happened out of the blue. They came together and were like, look, we need to get ready for the season. Just give me a boost this year, and we can go our separate ways later. And Terry McLaurin didn't seem anywhere close to his new deal, and he also was able to find a compromise with the Commanders, though the Commanders more bent to Terry McLaurin. So, yes, Micah still looking for a new deal. Jerry Jones has said that he's tried to make him the highest paid non-quarterback player in the NFL, and that his agent and him turned it down. So, at this point, I have no idea what's going on down in Dallas, but it's just nice to point and laugh, and the more and more this goes on, the more and more I actually question whether he's going to be ready for week 1. Physically. Not that he won't be there and he'll be suited up and ready to go, but more, will he be in condition? Because he hasn't been conditioning either, at least in the public eye, and everybody can get access to, Cowboys training camp and such. So, will he be in shape to take on Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata week 1? Who knows? We're going to find out, I guess, together next week. But that's been this episode of the Flying with the Flock podcast. I want to thank you guys for listening this far, and I hope you guys are enjoying the longer episodes now that we're back closer to the NFL season. So, without further ado, leave a like and subscribe down below, and I will catch you guys on the next one. And remember, go Birds!